So I'm just going to recycle the code from before, but this time I'm going to use a captured list. So I'm going to say unowned self, and then I'm going to use the keyword in. I'm just going to print the line here to help illustrate when H1 is being deinitialized. So the header title is being deinitialized on line 21. So let's illustrate what's going on in Sketch. So the main difference when we're using unowned self, the captured list, on line 7, is that this reference will be an unowned reference instead of a strong reference. So when a header title is set to nil, the instance of HTML element loses its strong reference, and so it's deallocated along with its reference to as HTML closure, and then as HTML closure has no strong references to it, and so it as well is deallocated. Now let's see what would happen if we used weak self instead. So it looks like we're getting some compile time bugs, and let's see what's going on. So value of optional type HTML element not unwrapped. So what this basically does is it converts what wasn't an optional value self to be optional. So we can force unwrap it like so if we're confident there is self. But when we use weak, we have to account for the fact that it could be nil. So it provides us a safe way to account for it. For example, we could say guard let self equals self, else return and we have to return a string, and we have to finish using itself and itself. Oops. And if we use unowned self, if we label the reference as unowned, if we label the reference to self as unowned in the capture list, then we don't need to do this. Now there is a risk for asynchronous environments where the result of the callback may happen after the class is set to nil, in which case you'll get a runtime error. So let's model what happens. Let's model what happens with the capture list. So first the compiler defines the class, and then it instantiates an HTML element, gives the name as h1 and the text as welcome. And an instance of HTML element is created because the as HTML property is lazily instantiated. So as HTML property is lazily given a value. And so self will be created after. So the HTML element is allocated memory, and then assign the name header title. And then on line 19, as HTML is given the closure value, and it's assigned to as HTML, which is a property on the HTML element. So the HTML element has a strong reference to as HTML, and self is passed in as an unowned reference. So as HTML holds an unowned reference to the HTML element. Now, on line 21, header title is set to nil. So HTML element is deallocated, and so is its reference to as HTML. And as HTML has no strong references to it, and so it is deallocated as well.